Now if you right click, and if you see, you have another option which says flatten. Now anywhere you see that your wire is actually straight, it's not broken down like this, it's not a dashed line, that means your data is flattened. Flattened data means all the data in that particular list, it's only organized as one single list. There are no multiple lists or multiple hierarchical structures inside a single list. Now let's try and flatten this and see what happens. So if I right click on faces, if I click on flatten, now take a look at how the data structure has changed. Now I only have one list, it says 0, no extra zeros, only one list, only 1 0, and all of my surfaces are inside one list. So I have 0 to 23. I have 4 boxes, 6 surfaces inside each box. 6 multiplied by 4 is 24. That's why you have 0 to 23. So initially you have 24 boxes or 24 surfaces and 6 surfaces inside each box, and you have 4 boxes. That's how the data has been structured. But as you can see, there are no multiple lists. There's only one single list, and all of the surfaces are inside that one list. And as you can also see, the wire turns straight. Now let's remove the flatten option. Just right click and click on flatten again, and it will go away. And now see that the data is again grafted naturally. So because the data structure is like this, so what happens is when data is grafted, now when you are using list item, you are giving it the index 0. You are giving it this particular list, the same list that you can see over here. I'm inputting that list inside list. When I am actually inputting 0, when 0 is going inside index, that means that I'm selecting the 0th index of every list that I have in this particular panel, which means I'm selecting 0 over here, I'm selecting 0 over here, I'm selecting 0 over here, and I'm also selecting 0 over here. So that's why I'm selecting 4 surfaces at a time. So if I click on this particular component, you see it's selecting 4 surfaces at a time. If I change it to 1, now you see it's selecting 4 surfaces at a time, which means it's selecting 1 from here, it's selecting 1 from here, it's also selecting 1 from here and 1 from here. So that's how grafting works. Grafting lets you select multiple data structures, multiple data objects in one single go, which makes Grasshopper a unique software, a unique plugin, a unique visual scripting software, which allows you to work faster using the speed of computation. So this exactly is what computational algorithmic thinking, or algorithmic architecture, algorithmic modeling is all about. You can actually use multiple data structures to select one single object or one single piece of entity, and you can select multiple items inside that entity and manipulate it accordingly. So now I'll just go ahead and delete this panel, and I'll put this back to 0. Now as you can see, since I have this, I'll also turn this thing off. As you can see, I'm just able to select the front faces. These are the whole boxes, and I am able to select only the front faces using the grafted data tree structure. Now what happens if I flatten it? I have taken the same input, but this time inside my list item I have flattened it. I have right click on list and I have clicked on flatten. To do this, if I turn it on, now take a look at what happens. Over here I am able to select only one face, and when I change it to 1, it's selecting only one face, and then 2, and then 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. It's selecting one face at a time. So what has happened over here is, if I double click and if I type panel, bring in the panel component, attach it to this list over here, or I can just double click and type surface, bring in a surface component, and I can also just flatten this so that I can attach it and see the data structure. You see, all of the data is flattened. So now what happens is, if I'm selecting 12, that means I'm only selecting the 12th surface, and which means I'm only selecting the 12th surface. Since I have only one list, I can only select one surface at a time. That's exactly what has happened. So I'll just delete both of these. So that's grafting, and this is flattening. So if you flatten something, you can only select one at a time. If you graft something, you can select multiple data structures or multiple objects at one go. As you can see, this is how the grafted data structure now looks like, which means that every single surface has a list of its own. So you see, this turns into one list, this one turns into another list, this one turns into another list, and this turns into another list. So every surface now has a list of its own. That's what the list item output is giving me. But in this case, I am only able to select only one surface, so it has only one single list. Now let's go ahead and take a look at this particular component, which I have just brought in a surface component and I have simplified it. Now we have seen grafting, we have seen flattening. Grafting converts one single list into multiple lists. Flattening converts multiple lists into one single list with all the data. Now what does simplify do? If you simplify a data structure, if you simplify something, this particular thing has actually these four surfaces, this particular component, the surface component. Now I have right clicked and simplified this. What this does is, you see, initially if I use a panel component, initially I had these zeros before each surface. When I simplify it, the zeros are gone. So simplification essentially removes all these extra zeros and will actually help you to work better and understand better the data tree structure of any object or of any script. So if you simplify something, the extra zeros are basically gone. So I'll just delete this particular surface, I'll just delete this panel, and now let's take a look at this component. If you want to understand data tree much better, instead of attaching panels to everything and taking a look at how the data is structured, you can also attach this component, which is known as param viewer. Param viewer, you can find it under parameters, under utility, as it is shown on the screen right now with red arrows and a red circle. This will actually tell you how many branches or how many lists your data structure has. Branches are essentially lists. So as you can see, you have four lists. Four branches means four lists of 0, 1, 2, 3, or four of these lists. Each list contains 6 items. N refers to the number of items in a list. So every box has been deconstructed or exploded into 6 faces, and every box is counted as a list. So you have 0, 1, 2, 3, you have 4 of these lists, and inside each list you have 6 faces, because every cuboid has 6 faces. You can just double click on this and also turn it into a data tree structure like this. You can essentially view how the tree is structured. So 0, 0 has only one list, 0, 0, 0, 1 has another one, 0, 2 has another one, and 0, 3 has another one. This is how the branching is, this is how the structure is organized. But if you take a look at the flattened structure, you have data with one branch, you only have one single list and you have one item. So if I double click on this, you see it only has one single item. So this is basically a pictorial representation of data tree. You can bring in a param viewer and you can see where the param viewer is located once again, and you can just double click on the param viewer and see the tree structure of how everything is organized. So that is a very basic explanation of data tree. We have understood what graft, reverse, and flatten and simplify. These 4 things are the major things of data trees. If you understand these 4 things very clearly, this was a very basic explanation of data trees. If you know this much as a beginner in Grasshopper, you can really do a lot using data trees. You can manipulate how data is exchanged, which means you can manipulate geometry accordingly. So this is it for this particular topic. In the next chapter, we'll actually take a look at some awesome concepts like Voronoi, Metabol, and Boxmorph. So I'll see you guys in the next chapter.